Hello and welcome to this special episode of Informed Investing with HSBC Mutual Fund, partnered by ET Now. I'm joined by three special experts, and today we'll be talking about how everyday individuals can become informed investors. What are some myths that we need to be wary of, and how we can ensure a better performance of our financial portfolio? Allow me to first introduce my guests. We have with us Ganesh Shanbag. He's the CEO at SMS Financial. Thank you so much, Ganesh, for being here. We have Sujata Kabraji. She's the managing partner at Scriptbox. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. And we have Kailash Kulkarni, the CEO of HSBC Mutual Fund. Kailash, welcome back to the studio again. Kailash, I'll start with you. Our series is Informed Investing. What, in your viewpoint, does an investor need to know or need to do to be an informed investor?
So, if a person believes that he or she doesn't know how to start investing or doesn't have enough money to invest and hence shies away, but uses the same money that they have to ensure that they get a better return with a similar risk profile, that itself, I think, is enhanced investing or informed investing.
Okay.
You need to do a little bit of reading up. You need to ask certain relevant questions. But any person who upgrades their personal investments from A to B, where B is better than A, is what I would say is an informed investor.
Okay, very interesting point. Sujata, I just want to take one interesting point that he spoke about. He said risk profile. Why I want to talk to you about risk profile is because in everyday life, and this is that people will be like, there's this acronym called YOLO, you only live once. And they'll be like, let's do this, let's do that because YOLO and I'll take all the risks. But that's not how people approach investing. What's your input on the risk angle as to how do you feel people should manage risk in investing?
So basically, risk is a perception with most of us. Everybody treats risk differently.
Yeah.
I think if people are simply informed that risk is in equity is very limited, provided you stay invested for 10 years, 15 years, I think it can be managed and more people will be. One example I like to give is, how much do you spend on going out? Most people will come up with $500. I'm like, one time, that $500, why don't you invest? And when you eat, you're not going to regurgitate it out, right? So just think you've eaten one extra pizza.
Exactly, and then that will, in the long term, make a big impact to each person. Ganesh, your thoughts on one part is the first question on informed investor. What would you call an informed investor?
I think the investor has to look at his overall investment that he's got. Probably look at the risk-return ratio that is there and the horizon that he has. Because typically what we do is we worry about the risk, but we don't asset allocate it across all asset classes. So there are multiple asset classes. Typically we love the bank FDs and gold, typically.
Yeah.
But equity investments over a longer period of time, if they do look at it as to what you consume actually, and these companies actually over a period of time really deliver good returns.
Yeah.
So probably, that will become better informed investor.
Okay, interesting. Kailash, he's got a very valid point because there is this level of comfort that people, and this is layman that I've spoken to, the common people, the common men and women, that bank FD, bank RD, gold, we are safe, we're comfortable, we're happy. You talk to them about mutual funds, they would be interested, they'll know a little bit, but people feel it's very complicated at times. What's your experience talking to so many people, and how do you tackle this? Because I'm sure this question comes up to you very often.
Oh, it comes hundreds of times to us, And you're right, people perceive it to be a little complicated. The good news is that over the last 5 years, more and more people have accepted it. Many of them don't realize that they have invested in a mutual fund. They say, मैंने SIP में पैसा डाला है. I have invested in a SIP, but they don't correlate it to SIP is equal to mutual fund. So that is a big challenge that is there. So we have to do much more work in terms of being more colloquial, simple language, and in the language a client understands. So multilingual. I think if you are able to do that, more people will do it. technology has helped. Today, if you go to tier 4 city, not even tier 3, tier 4, everybody uses a phone
Right.
to subscribe to a Netflix or some application where they consume TV serials or some serial, or they are seeing sports or whatever it is. It's very common today.
Yes.
It's the same instrument can be used with some advice or with some direction rather from people like Sujata and Ganesh
Right.
to help them invest. So use technology for concluding the transaction, but take the advice which is there.
Okay.
You know, but just wanted to just say one of the things what Ganesh said, very important. You know, while traditionally you invest in gold and FDs, even everybody who is a salaried person has a fixed income investment called PF.
Right.
Right?
Very true.
And somebody who's a businessman has something called a PPF. Now that's a lot of debt which is already there with us, and hence when we talk of equities, because in the long term, like Sujata said, if it's 10 years plus, it's a great asset investment to be in.
Absolutely, and that's a very important point there. And I'll just take this ahead, Sujata. The earlier point that Kailash made about reaching out to even tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 people who are using mobiles, using that technology to help them understand this avenue of investment. Your experience in that of talking to people who we would, who might be hesitant because they might not understand this product. But what is your experience? And then I'll come to Ganesh also, just your insights. So first.
So I'll give you an example that happened today. I took a cab to come here, and I was just chatting with the cab driver, and I asked him, do you invest? So he said, nahi, ghar mein paisa rakhta hu. So I said, why? So he said, I don't know what to do. So I've downloaded some app. मैं देखा, लेकिन I don't know what it means. So I said, how much can you save? Now this is Bombay, it's not tier 4, it's Bombay. He said, I want to invest, I can invest 2,000 rupees a month, but I don't understand. So I said, would you be able to take risk?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, see, even I come from a village, Kolhapur, outside Kolhapur, and the price of vegetable like onion goes up and down, tomato goes up and down. So I understand when prices will go up and down, I'm not worried.
Wow.
And it taught me that I can say the same to somebody else.
Absolutely.
And he's committed already in this one car journey that I will put 2,000 rupees in equity. And then after 3 months, I will have more money because my wife's going to start earning. And I will give you more money.
Wow.
But please tell me where to put the money. So I think taking off from make it simple and make it accessible, which is what we try to do. We have a phygital thing.
Yes.
So physically I need to explain, and then he can move to a digital app which will guide him through the process.
Two very important points. First, this is a beautiful example of the impact of prices in onions, tomatoes, which he's kind of correlated to risks in the markets, which is great. And secondly, you're an amazing saleswoman because you convinced him in this drive to the studio. Ganesh, same your thoughts on this. How are you seeing this, the confusion that is in people's minds, and how are you able to help them overcome?
No, probably we need to understand from them as to what are their nuances actually. And people have that mental block that equity is volatile, equity is risky. But if you actually handhold them and explain this to them, that over a period of time, that is the only place where a recent amount of wealth is created post-inflation, post-tax.
Right.
Because we don't look at the actual return, we only look at return. We just want a certain return. We're not looking at risk-adjusted or tax-adjusted return.
Right.
So here probably the returns are far better. There is volatility in the intermittent period, but over a period of time it's clearly a wealth-creating asset and liquid. That is very, very important. People buy assets which are tangible. They think it is worth X value, but when they go to sell, they don't get it. But here, you can sell part of the asset as and when you require the funds. So it's very, very liquid, and it helps create wealth.
So, one point also which I'll come back to you on, Ganesh, but Kailash, the issue that also becomes is, see, the idea is with equity, and this is proven stats, reports, everything, that in the long term, it's a great builder of wealth. In the long term, that's the caveat that's important. How do you get people to have this patience as opposed to aaj liya, I want to double my money in 3 months, or I don't know, whatever, stuff like that, and opposed to saying that, listen, keep invested for 10, 15, 20 years, that's when you see and that latter half is when you will see the mega magic.
So clearly this becomes a big challenge. I think what's important here is we should always have certain data with us, carry data with us, and show it to the person that this has actually happened at times when you thought the market was great. You invested and something happened in the market, a global event, a local event, and the markets corrected 25% over the next week. But over the next 3 years, you saw the big recovery which had happened, and then the markets went up. And if you have that data, see what happens is many a times, many of us go and have these discussions unprepared without data. Then it's a conversation between you and me.
Right.
But if you have something to show, it just adds much more value, because then people pay attention and people are actually looking at that graph or people are looking at the numbers and say, oh, now I understand. So it just helps that conversation.
Yes.
But you need to keep repeating that message 3-5 times before it really sinks into the person that a shortcut is good if you catch it at the right time, but 4 out of 5 times you may miss the bus and then you make the mistake. So that's the...
Well, on that note, it's time for a very short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay tuned to Informed Investing with HSBC Mutual Fund, partnered by ET Now. Welcome back to Informed Investing with HSBC Mutual Fund, partnered by ET Now. I'm in conversation with Ganesh Shanbag, Sujata Kabraji and Kailash Kulkarni. Sujata, you know, the one other thought always happens with people is this same long-term, short-term, and this delay. So Kailash spoke about instant gratification. The other end is the delayed gratification, having the patience, like Kailash was saying. Because on one hand, hey, I've got a bonus, I've got 1 lakh, let me buy this new glitzy, shiny phone, as opposed to investing, and then after 20 years, kya hoga uska? Why? Again, you live only once, let's enjoy this right now.
Correct. So the way I deal with it is I basically turn to goal based. So I say, okay, ab kya chahiye? Then and more or less most of us have 3 non-negotiable goals. You have to have emergency money, you have to have medical cover, and you have to have retirement money and kids car. So the minute you break it up and say, okay, this is what you need for this goal, this is what you need for that goal, and if you use up your bonus money, then this is the goal that's going to get affected. So that's like a wake-up call.
Right.
That works really well. And sometimes we find that people are obsessed with buying property. So then we've created a calculator. They always have some property, even if it's in the village or anywhere. Right. And we say, what price did you buy it? When did you buy it? And look at the return.
Right.
And returns are abysmal.
Very true.
So it kind of makes them open their eyes, and then they come back and they move into financial assets.
I think it also is about, looking at that larger amount, that this is what this property is worth now, not realizing that how much we invested then and that duration of growth.
Duration. So I tell them, if you're holding the property, right? Now it's 25 years or 18 years or whatever, did you ever think that I'll sell this and buy an iPhone or whatever, And the answer is always no. So you have to sort of customize it to the mindset of the person, which is why the physical part comes in. Once you've cracked the mindset, then you can move to more
Once this behavior change comes in.
Yes.
But again, it's being data-led, right?
Yes.
Because you're using data
Yes.
to have that conversation, it hits so much faster.
And we use their data.
Right,
We don't
exactly.
do just random data.
Yeah.
I tried that. Like I took, Samudra Mahal got sold at some 1 lakh, whatever, per square foot.
Kind of thing, yeah.
And I worked it out and I said, that is the ultimate. And the return was 13% plus minus tax, so in hand. And at that time we were getting 18% in large caps.
Right.
So a lot of conversion of their mindset happened with just one practical. It wasn't, nobody's buying Samudra Mahal on a, like, unless you're in that league.
Yes.
So then we take their own data, punch it in, show them, and they're like, oh my God, why am I doing this?
The wow, eureka moment, as we say. Ganesh, you spoke earlier about volatility. It's an inherent part of not just stock markets, like Sujata gave the experience of tomatoes and onions also. But what happens is there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction. Market gira, kuch din market down hai, sab becho.
So now I think it changes, the mindset changes with age of the person.
Interesting.
Because if you are a matured investor who's already been investing, then you don't get worried about it.
Yeah.
But if you've invested in the markets for under 5 years, you've not seen that volatility in the market. And if you see a market fall for a certain amount of time, you deduce that it will keep falling further, and you want to either get out of equity, move into liquid, or stop the SIP. The knee-jerk reaction, let's stop everything and wait. Let's see what the outcome is. And like Kailash said, if you were invested in that period, 3 years post that instant, actually you get phenomenal returns. If you've done your asset allocation, you really don't need to worry about the volatility.
Kailash, one common thing that I've again spoken to people, and there is confusion in the mutual fund categories. They're like, itni sari hai, fir, I mean, forget getting about how many AMCs are there. It's just about those categories are so much. Again, the instant knee-jerk reaction or whatever comfort spaces, I go to my bank, he's got a FD, he's got a RD. How do you tackle that? How do you guide people?
So first and foremost is, you need to compare it with inflation. So if your inflation is 7% and your bank is giving 7%, effectively you're not making any money. You're just about meeting the higher growth that is there. So there's nothing. So you have to explain that to them. Yes, there are many categories, but I think what we advise or what we recommend to a lot of investors is typically you choose your 3-4 categories and not really spread yourself thin across 15 categories. That's not the right thing to do. And beginners have different set of categories because they're experiencing mutual funds. And like Ganesh said, once you're a seasoned investor, you may want to take certain extra risk, and hence you would want to look at smaller and mid caps. But there are hybrids, there are debt funds, there are a variety of funds which are there. And I think if you don't want one simple thing a common man understands is Sensex and Nifty. These are two terms which are now known across the world, right? So if you invest in an index fund, it goes up and goes down. The questions become less, just simply putting to start and experiencing a mutual fund. And I think that's how they evolve as investors. You become informed investors, and then you start diversifying into categories that you want to take.
Right.
Because I think it's important to start this journey more than anything else. So what surprises me? Today you want to go on a holiday. You plan. You plan which route, which airline, which bus, which hotel, what sites you want to see. But for financial planning, which is far more important, you don't plan. You just go and invest because somebody said so.
Exactly.
I mean, if you can do it for your travel, I'm sure you can do it for your personal finance.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. We're running out of time, but one last question to each one. Sujata, exactly what Kailash said about, you take these decisions because someone said. Are you seeing change where Indians are now becoming open to actually paying for financial investments? We'll pay to go to a medical doctor, but we'll not pay to go to a financial doctor, an investment advisor.
I'm definitely seeing a change.
Okay, so that's good.
I actually have a bunch of people in the US who are very high net worth, who don't have a financial planner. And I have people over here with 2,500 bucks who come for advice. I mean, they don't call it planning or anything. They just need guidance, and they're not afraid to ask.
That's really important.
They just don't know how to find us.
Ganesh, just as we wrap up, last thoughts from you, and then I'll come to you, Kailash, also. Just last thoughts.
Just an experience.
Yes.
One class of investments. The moment, as Kailash said, if it is decided that you want to invest for your child's future, I always say the mother is the best guardian for the child, because the father would tend to buy a two-wheeler or a car or something. So the investment which was done in the child's name under the guardianship of the mother actually compounds the most, because the mother doesn't allow that money to be ever touched. It's an interesting concept. And even when the child becomes a major, the mother says, no, I don't need it for his graduation. Let's wait for the post-graduation.
Wow.
So, I've seen that this category, because of the mother's guardianship,
Yes.
helps in creating a lot of wealth.
Fantastic. That's a very interesting insight.
I want to add to that.
Yes.
I think if every woman became an investor, our country would change.
Fantastic,
Women
yes.
have this, whether it's for the child, whether it's for the retirement, medical, they are committed.
Yes,
Once
that's
they
for sure.
understand. But unfortunately, they have been brought up to believe finance is not their forte. 50% of our population is women. Let's educate the women and let's make this the richest country in the world again.
That's a beautiful thought, and we should definitely do something on that. Kailash, wrapping up, your last comments before we wrap up this.
I always tell people that when the markets are only going up one way, with a little bit of volatility, nobody needs any help from anyone because everybody is happy. It's when the markets correct that you need help. And you cannot cry on the shoulders of a laptop. You can cry on the shoulders of distributor partners or people who
Yes.
help you grow your money. So please consult
Yes.
and then invest. That was my only thing I would say. If you want to be an informed investor, you need to consult and invest. And start investing today.
Today is the day. Let's get it started. Thank you so much, Kailash. Thank you, Sujata. And thank you, Ganesh.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this very special episode of Informed Investing with HSBC Mutual Fund, partnered by ET Now. And I hope you're taking back some very important and very valuable feedback from the show today. Thank you so much for watching.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.